guess it's safe to say that if you live in Bethlehem and you're of a certain age, you know that a big part of Bethlehem's identity was wrapped up in being the home base for the great Bethlehem Steel Corporation. On this edition of Exploring Bethlehem, I thought maybe we would check out not so much the company, but a very important part of the company. A gentleman by the name of Edmund Martin, actually. And even if you don't know much about Ed Martin, you probably know something about a major part of his legacy, which sadly doesn't exist anymore. But when it did, it was right here.
When Ed Martin became president of the Steel in 1960, and then also chairman in 1964, it was clear that the corporation needed a new headquarters. There was strong pressure from many on the board of directors to move the headquarters to New York City. But Ed was adamant that Bethlehem Steel should remain headquartered in Bethlehem, a city he had grown to love. Part of keeping the headquarters and administration in Bethlehem was making sure that Bethlehem was a great place to live. Downtown Bethlehem was not so pretty in those days. The Moravian industrial area along the Monocacy Creek was an ugly automobile junkyard. Ed and his wife Frances, a tiny but energetic lady better known to friends as Mighty Mouse, were instrumental in the efforts for historic preservation and cleaning up the eyesore behind the Hotel Bethlehem. The plans for the new headquarters were nothing if not ambitious. Originally, 2 towers were envisioned. The framework was completed in 1969, and there was a halt in construction for a couple of years. The building was completed in 1972. It was named in honor of Ed, who had retired at that point.
So if you're a really important steelmaker, like Ed Martin, and you've worked your way up from 30 cents an hour to the highest level of management in one of America's 10 largest companies, one of the richest companies, you're going to live in your hometown, your adoptive hometown of Bethlehem. So where do you live? Or where do you end up? Well, if you're Ed Martin, you end up living right across the street from your boss. In this case, Eugene Grace. And right across the street, that's it, 1220 Prospect Avenue. Now today the diocese, the Catholic Diocese of Allentown, owns both of these structures. Today Ed Martin's home on Prospect Avenue is known as the Trexler Pavilion Personal Care Residence. But that's where Ed and his wife lived in the 1960s. Right across the street from the big guy. Now this section was also known as Bonus Hill. Now that was a nickname somebody gave it. I don't know if Bethlehem Steel executives decided on that nickname or whether it was observers, but it famously pointed to the known fact that the highest people in the Bethlehem Steel Corporation earned huge bonuses for selling steel. And because they had so much money, they could afford the best real estate in the city. And here on the west side of Bethlehem, that made Market Street and Prospect Avenue. There were a couple of more modest homes where he and his wife took up residence. Let's check them out too. We're in historic Bethlehem now, along High Street. And between Broad Street and Wall. And this rather modest home is where Ed Martin and his wife got their start. It's at the corner of High and Milton in the historic district. You know, and by comparison to where he ended up, this is a lovely home, but I'm sure you'll agree, it's kind of modest compared to where Ed Martin ended up in Bethlehem. Oh well, you know, everybody has to start somewhere.